Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast. It is crossover Thursday, so I talked to Louie DiBiase of Locked On Eagles. All the things going on. There's lots of drama going on in the Philly camp. Want to know what's going on there? Listen to this episode right here. It's going to be a fun one here on the Locked On Steelers podcast on crossover Thursday. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Steelers your first listen each and every day. It's crossover Thursday. I'm Louie DiBiase, joined as always by Christopher Carter, at least for Eagles Steelers crossover Thursday, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll win $50 instantly when you play $5. America's game of the week, the 10-3 Pittsburgh Steelers come to Lincoln Financial Field against the 11-2 red-hot Philadelphia Eagles, who have won 9 straight games. But Chris, like this game, it comes with a lot of drama, at least on our side of things. Of course, Saquan Barkley right now on pace to break Eric Dickerson's all-time rushing record. They have run through the run game, no pun intended there, but there was some passing drama Monday night. A.J. Brown's comments got Brandon Graham going. He made comments on the radio, which caused a stir as he pretty much called out number 11 over the public media forum. So I think the Eagles, at least on our side, you would think it's all like roses and rainbows right now, but this team is not satisfied with their passing game, and I think that's going to be something to really focus on against a really good Pittsburgh defense is how do we fix that before the playoffs? I'm going to be watching that really closely, and if they can't fix it, what's the vibe? Is it a 2023 like collapse energy? That's something I'm really watching close in this matchup between our teams.
Yeah, you look at the personnel, and this is where we're looking at in Pittsburgh. Like, you know, you look at this roster, and you think Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl quarterback, A.J. Brown, all-pro wide receiver, Devontae Smith, extremely fast, talented, Jahan Dotson, fast, talented, Dallas Goedert. They got an offensive line. And you got Saquon Barkley.
On paper, it's a giant. Yeah.
It's a dream team. You know, I know Philly fans don't want to hear those
yeah.
because of what Vince Young said way back when. But like, you look at that, but then you look at their numbers, and the Eagles do have the number one rushing offense in the NFL at 190.5 per game, but then they're passing them at 180.6 yards per game. That's worse than the Bears and the Titans and the Giants and the Panthers. And what's happening?
They've thrown less than anybody, Chris, in the league.
It's insane. And when you look at it, like, you know, A.J. Brown, you know, making comments that may or may not be determined one way. We all know how wide receivers talk. Listen, the Steelers dealt with Deontay Johnson for like 5 or 6 years, and now the NFL, you know, the Ravens can't stand him. The Panthers traded him away. People seeing how that is. The Steelers have had plenty of their big mouth wide receivers that say things, and sometimes they'll say things that aren't directly. They're sort of passive aggressive, right? They don't point the finger specifically at one person, but you know who they're talking about. And then it leads to Brandon Graham's comments, and then Brandon Graham has to backtrack about them. And it's just like, man, this is some inconvenient timing for the Eagles to be doing this.
Awful timing.
Right now, they're in the race for the 1 seed. Like, the Lions are playing the Bills this weekend. If the Bills win and the Eagles win, the Eagles got a good shot at getting the 1 seed.
Chris, it's the most unnecessary drama that their captain started themselves. Like, yes, everybody knows the passing game is a problem, and that was something that's been talked about for over a month now. They're investing hundreds of $millions in 3 passing targets, a quarterback, and 2 premier tackles. Like you said, it is a super team on paper that has had success over the last 2 years throwing the ball. So the fact that they are passing as inefficiently as they are, like, that is a huge concern. Of course, with Saquon Barkley and how good the run game is, it's okay to be a run-first team, even with that personnel. But when they're throwing, it's not how often. When they're throwing, it's not good enough. So that is a problem that everybody knows about. But A.J. Brown's brief comment of just saying passing when asked what's the problem, that is what causes the drama, because it leaves everything open for interpretation. Are you talking about Jalen Hurts? Are you talking about the coaching staff? Are you talking about your targets? Do you just mean in general, like you're not up to where you should be? And that's a captain doing that. And then another captain who's been here for 15 years, has played more games than any Eagle in franchise history, says that they should be keeping it in-house. And he's doing that on a radio station that last year tried to pretty much run A.J. Brown out of town. So it's all self-induced drama. If they collapse, and I don't think they will like 2023, But this is a lot of this kind of stuff that happened when they were 10-1 last year and things fell down. If they take a turn for the worse these final 4 games in the postseason, they only have their main core of captains to blame for that. So, again, the passing game's a problem, but the way they've handled that through the media this week, that to me is the bigger issue.
And look, the Steelers have their fair share of drama. George Pickens, right before he got injured, he was getting penalized for taunting, and he was getting in fights with some of the Browns players after the game. So it's not like the Steelers are squeaky clean either, but it's just like the Steelers just beat the Browns, and the story is, hey, they're playing pretty well, and how are they gonna, how did they just beat the Browns without George Pickens, and how are they gonna carry themselves? And they're locked in, and there's all these happy stories about Russell Wilson, and how what he's meant to the team. It just seems, bad timing for the Eagles to have this kind of stuff, and also again, if you're the Steelers, I think that like Mike Tomlin brought up when we talked to him on Tuesday about, the last time the Steelers faced Saquon Barkley was with the Giants.
Yeah.
In 15 carries, he had 6 yards in that game. That is like the second fewest amount of yards ever in the history of the NFL, in the modern era of the NFL, where a guy gets 15 carries. That's the second fewest amount of yards allowed there. But as Mike Tomlin acknowledged, there's a lot more in this offense that you have to worry about. Than you have to worry about Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton and those guys back then.
And a much better offensive line, Chris. I mean, that's the thing, is this combination of, one of the best, I think the best offensive line coach I've ever seen, Jeff Stoutland, an elite offensive line in Saquon Barkley. There's a reason it might go down as the best rushing season a team has ever had. So that's my thing is, I think you're going to see an added emphasis, especially early in this game, on getting the passing game going, especially to A.J. Brown, being aggressive, taking some shots downfield. But I also I think Pittsburgh, right now, there's almost an acceptance to their identity that they have that Philadelphia doesn't, probably because of the talent they know they have in the passing game. I don't want to see them completely lose their identity, though, of running the football, because even though Pittsburgh's an elite rushing defense, they've had success against top-tier rushing defenses over the last month. Look at the Baltimore Ravens just a couple weeks ago. That was the number 1 rushing defense in the league at the time, and Saquon Barkley still had over 100 yards. So I know there's a added emphasis on let's get this right. Let's put the fire out with A.J. Brown in the passing game, but I don't want to see them almost overcorrect in this game against a really good defense.
And here's where head games start to play, right? Because like you're saying, the Eagles don't want to overcorrect. But if I'm the Steelers, do I say, you know what? You're not running the ball.
Sure.
Prove to me that you and A.J. Brown and
Jalen Hurts
should
do that. That's what I would do.
You know what? Hey, we're gonna put our corners on islands. We're gonna let our safeties do their work. But this defensive front's number 1 job is to stuff Saquon Barkley, to contain Jalen Hurts, make sure that if you're beating us with your arm that you haven't done so. And the Steelers are a team, the way that they coordinate their defense, and if you watch Hard Knocks in AFC, they always put up who they got a plan for. Like when they played Joe Burrow, they said we have the Joe Burrow plan. We have the Myles Garrett plan, and best believe they've got a Saquon Barkley plan this week. And I think the Saquon Barkley plan, that's the plan to stop the Eagles, because if you stop him, you're going to force Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown to work out their relationship on the field. And if you're able to get some points on offense, as Russell Wilson's been able to do with the Steelers, you're going to put the Eagles in a position where they're going to have to figure their stuff out quick, because if they do not, all of a sudden, there's more vitriol flying, there's confusion there, and the Steelers might have a chance to win in a place they haven't won since 1960,
which is crazy. Yeah, that's why this is such an important game. Obviously, as you mentioned, the Eagles, they've won 9 straight games and are in the race for the 1 seed. So that's so important to keep, tabs, to keep up to date with Detroit, keep pace, I should say. But it's also such an important game because of what happened last year. I don't think that would happen again. But yeah, if you head into this game and Pittsburgh says we're taking Saquon away, and hey, here are some one-on-one matchups for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and they still can't take advantage, I'm a little bit nervous about what could happen over the last month. So, everything's clicking right now in Philadelphia. They're the number 1 defense in the league. They have the number 1 rushing attack, and I think they just have to get out of their own way, Chris. I think that's going to be something I'm really watching for sure.
Absolutely. If that becomes an issue in this game, it's going to change things. I think the Steelers, they want to push those buttons. That's what they start doing.
I think so too.
So we'll see how that is. But there's still a lot of other elements to this matchup that are fascinating. Week.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some great storylines for the Pittsburgh Steelers, keys to victory, all that and more coming your way. It's Crossover Thursday, Locked On Eagles, and Locked On Steelers. This episode of Locked On Eagles and Locked On Steelers Crossover Thursday is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, they give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in just one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Maybe you want to bet on Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown to bounce back. Take that over on Brown's receiving yard total. Again, $5. That's all you got to put on it. If you win, you'll get $150 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Crossover Thursday, we are also brought to you today by Game Time. They have a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And you can get tickets on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, so much more. On top of the great price, you'll get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, we continue on Crossover Thursday, Locked On Eagles, Locked On Steelers, Louie DiBiase alongside Christopher Carter. And Chris, this is a big game, of course, for the Philadelphia Eagles, as we talked about, to just put out this drama that started this week, but also for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're 10-3 right now, a top 3 seed in the conference, trying to hold off Baltimore and clinch this AFC North. And I think for the Steelers, I don't know if you agree, but there is almost more of an acceptance of like who they are this year. And I think this is not your recent Pittsburgh Steelers of the last few years, the 9-8 team that squeaks into the playoffs off the back of their defense. Like, they are still a run team that's great on defense, but I think you've been getting much more like explosive play from quarterbacks, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, that you haven't gotten over the recent years.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about Russell Wilson is that they wanted him to come in and fit their style, and Russell Wilson's done that. And like, you know, for all the criticisms that he's faced over the years, as far as, oh, he makes it about himself, he's done this, he's done the exact opposite in Pittsburgh. He's made the offense about everyone else. 2 weeks ago against the Bengals, he hit 10 different receivers in the offense. This past week against the Browns, 9 different receivers. He's able to distribute the football, and you can see his demeanor in the locker room on the field. And I think it's one of the, you know, initially when they announced this Hard Knock stuff, the Steelers hate Hard Knock. They've always denied it from being a training camp. They don't want any cameras around their team. Mike Tomlin hates this stuff. But I think it's kind of helping the perception of this team right now when you're seeing Russell Wilson be buddy-buddy with everybody and be this great leader, and Broderick Jones being like, hey, man, how do you go from telling us to play to giving us a motivational speech in the huddle and like stuff like that? I think it's showing these really likable traits of the Steelers and kind of giving that, like, wait a minute, like, these guys are kind of cool right now. Mike Tomlin's giving these amazing motivational speeches to make me want to go to work tomorrow. Yeah. Those types of things are happening. And Russell Wilson fits that culture so well. When they signed him way back in March, and I was doing shows from Washington, D.C., because I was covering the ACC tournament. I couldn't believe what I was watching happen in Pittsburgh. You know, when that was going down, I was looking at like, man, this is a cry for leadership in the offense, because after Ben Roethlisberger retired and Marquise Pouncey and David DeCastro, there were no leaders left over from that era. Sure. Whereas the Steelers defense, they still had Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, all those guys to carry on the torch of, hey, this is what the expectations are. This is the standard that Mike Tomlin always talks about. But in the offense, there was no standard bearer. And so Najee Harris had to step up. Pat Freiermuth had to kind of step up. And they were stepping up, but you still needed that leader, that guy that stirred the drink, the quarterback that made everything calm down. And Justin Fields did a good job at the start of the year. But once Russell Wilson got healthy, you just immediately saw, hey, he's piecing everything together. He's seeing what they're doing. And that's what's allowing this Steelers offense to be more complete. Because, look, this Steelers offense wants to run the ball. Like, I think a big element of this game is the trenches. Who runs the ball first? Agree. Who runs the ball better? Which side gets more push on their side, and which side gives up less pressure on their quarterback? That's going to be a big story of this game. But what Russell Wilson's done is, you know, in the past 2 years, and I'd say even 3 years with the last year of Ben Roethlisberger, The Steelers, when their run game wasn't working, they were in trouble. They weren't going to get it done that day. But when their run game was working, they could feed off of it. Now Russell Wilson says like, hey, if the run game's not working, we got other weapons here. We can do other things to create space in the run game, and that's what's unique for Pittsburgh right now. And that's also why right now, like if you look at the rankings and how things are going on offense, the Steelers right now have a top 10 scoring offense in the NFL, which if you had told Steelers fans before that at the beginning of the year, they said they're crazy. They'll never get that. Right. Everyone would have. And if you look at like right now, it's 24.8 points per game. I think it's more like 28 points per game when Russell started. So that's a big part of what he's done is he's brought that balance to the team because now you have a top 5 defense, a top 10 offense. They haven't had that since 2007.
No, that's what I'm saying. And like, yeah, is Russell Wilson a top 5 quarterback in football like he used to be? No, of course not. But you look at, I think the timely explosives is what I look at even for like the Eagles passing offense. I've come to an acceptance point too with Jalen Hurts. Like I don't think he'll ever be consistently a top 5 quarterback when it comes to processing, pocket passing, inside of structure, being that kind of guy. But what you've normally gotten is a run-first offense that's elite, and you have gotten the 20-plus yard passing plays you can rely on every single game. And, Chris, I think that's something, with Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett, you just couldn't bank on. With Justin Fields' legs, you could get that. And with Russell Wilson's deep ball, I think that's what you're getting with Pittsburgh, and it's why they're a top 10 scoring offense. But what do they do without George Pickens this Sunday, though? That's a big thing I'm watching, because the Eagles secondary, it's very hard to make plays on them, especially deep.
They're athletic, man. They cover ground quickly. They're aggressive, and I think those are all really positive things. And those are things the Steelers are noting here. I think what has to happen is, and I wrote about this in a film study in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You can check that out, post-gazette.com. It's published Wednesday morning. But if you want to see what the Steelers are doing without George Pickens, it's how they're distributing the football. Russell Wilson has been doing a really good job. One, he loves to get – when he gets that one-on-one down the sideline, that back shoulder pass, and every week it's at a different spot in the field. Some weeks it's 20 yards, some weeks it's 25, some weeks it's 30, some weeks it's 18. But he's going to do it in different spots so that you as a corner, you can't just anticipate where it's going. And if you look up for the ball too early, you might misplay it, or the guy might run past you. And so it's that moon ball factor that he gets, but that's not the only element in his offense. What he's done is he's hit it often enough that defenses have to respect it. And now he can force defenses to honor it, because if let's say you're the Eagles and you come out in a single high safety look because you want to have help against the run so that Najee Harris and Jalen Warren don't get going in their run game. You're going to have, when you have one high safety, your corners have to live on islands on the outside. That's just the way the football is played. So in that situation, if you get Mike Williams, going down the sideline, Russell Wilson might like going there. But what he also might try to do is, hey, I'm going to look over at Mike Williams. If that middle safety tries to go help over there, that's one. Pat Freiermuth right down the seam. That's how they scored their second touchdown against the Browns. He just looked to his left, safety flew that way, and he said, nope, going this way, bang. And that's where Russell Wilson's command of the offense has really helped the Steelers, is creating those types of opportunities. It was just so hard to get Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, those guys to do that consistently for years, and now he's brought that element back. So now, like again, Scotty Miller and Mike Williams combined for 3 catches all season for the Steelers before that Browns game. They go into that Browns game, they have 6 between them. Mike Williams and Scotty Miller both caught balls, more than 20 yards downfield. And that's where I think that the Steelers have it, is that, like, look, we can hit guys now that aren't conventional playmakers that you're not going to have time to study a whole lot for. And then that's going to open up guys like Pat Freiermuth, who really, I think, is now the main weapon of this offense when it comes to the passing game. And here's the thing. If that gets going and they start hitting there and you're starting to worry about that, all of a sudden, you're not looking at Najee Harris. You're not looking at Jalen Warren. And then that Steelers offensive line that's gotten young and better. I asked Mike Tomlin about that on Tuesday. Rookie center, Zach Frazier, rookie right guard, Mason McCormick, second-year tackle, Broderick Jones. The 3 of them together, they have become bulldozers. They've been pushing people around. They've been mowing guys down. And when they get playing downhill, that's when this offense really starts feeding off of everything. But I think, again, it's about passing to set that up, because I talked about the Eagles' defensive front. They're nasty, too. They're the number 1 run defense right now.
Yeah, they're number 1 in a lot of categories right now, passing and running. And it's funny, Chris, I think both sides, like how the defense can contain Pittsburgh's offense, Philadelphia's offense. I think it's a pretty similar blueprint, and it's why it's hard to stop both teams. It's why one is 11-2 and one is 10-3. We'll get to keys to victory coming up next as we wrap up Crossover Thursday. Locked on Eagles and Locked on Steelers. This episode of Crossover Thursday for Locked on Eagles and Locked on Steelers, we are brought to you by Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points for flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program. The possibilities are endless. Access unique experiences that are exclusive to Built members. I love using points for travel. It makes it easy on Built to easily turn those rent points into rewards. If you're already paying rent, why not make it work for you? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today. All right, so for the Eagles and for the Steelers, Sunday's game of the week, what are the keys to victory for both sides? Chris, I think there is a common theme of this show for both offenses and for both defenses. I really do think it comes down to who wins the battle in the trenches, and that does sound cliche, but I think the strong suit of the Eagles offense is running the football. I think the strong suit of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is running the football. Both teams have a really good defensive front, though. It's a kind of a strength-on-strength battle, and that's going to make it a fun game to watch. I really do think whoever wins that on both sides, they're probably going to win this game.
I think so, too. Also, I want to correct myself. I said that the Eagles have the number one run defense. They have the number one total yards defense.
Total yards, yep.
Right. That was my mistake there. But I think one element that's going to be really crucial here, if you look back at how the Steelers attacked the Bengals defense, not good. It's like the worst defense in the NFL. But the Bengals defense tried to overcommit to two factors. They wanted to stuff the run, and they wanted to take away the deep ball. You saw early in the half, and I wrote about this in the post because last week they deployed like 3/4 of their defense was basically two high safeties, but the linebackers and the defensive line, their first steps was crush the run. So they were going to say, hey, Russell Wilson, we know you like the deep ball. Hey, Steelers, we know you like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. So we're going to take away both, and you're going to have to beat us by working the short passing game.
Intermediate, yeah. And
then that's what Russell Wilson did. He was like, all right, here. And then eventually the Bengals like, oh, man, all right, we got to go to one high safety. And then all of a sudden, bang, deep down the field, big plays, and then that opens up the Steelers' offense a bit more. That's where the Eagles' defense is going to have to win. If they can take away the run without overcommitting a second safety down low, that's going to be big. But then here's the thing: is that if they're not overcommitting to the run, when Russell Wilson tries to get some of those plays, and they'll use misdirection, they'll use play action, they'll use bootlegs, they'll use different things to try to catch you running in the wrong direction. If they allow space for guys like Najee Harris, guys like Jalen Warren, number 2 tight end, Darnell Washington. If they allow those guys to get space and they start catching the ball and they start getting downfield, that's how the Steelers offense can start to pace itself and then dink and dunk you and make it a death by 1,000 cuts. And that's where I think the Steelers like to live sometimes. And then, if the Steelers can get that balance, to me, it's not just running the ball. It's doing those little things on offense that kind of make you think a little much, and then they run the ball. Because now, as a linebacker, Nakobe Dean is his first step to the line of scrimmage now, or is his first step lateral to be kind of like, okay, who's coming this way? I mean, am I going to have to cover somebody on this one? That's what the Steelers offense has to do. They have to take the aggression out of this Eagles defense. And this is a very athletic defense. I feel like it's the Georgia defense. You got Nakobe Dean. You got
mostly is personnel wise.
Right? It's crazy. And what's funny is you're going against the Georgia offense. Well, the great Pickens ain't there, but Darnell Washington, Broderick Jones. There's going to be a lot of guys that know each other in this game.
True.
But and hey, maybe that's just Andy Weidel. There's the Andy Weidel Bowl going on right now. But I think that's the key here is outside of the trenches, it's who can get something else going to help them in the trenches battle, because both sides are going to have their wins and losses in the trenches, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, it's strength on strength. I don't think anyone's going to completely overly dominate that matchup.
Exactly. So if those are going back and forth and no one's dominating it there, who can win the other things that gives you an edge that battle? I think that's going to be the biggest key in this game.
And I think of the same thing for the Eagles, but at the same time, and there is an added emphasis on doing the other things right because of what's going on this week with the passing drama.
Right.
But at the same time, I will say, even with a strength-on-strength matchup, even with having to do those things right, don't completely abandon your identity that has allowed you to win 9 straight games. You know what I mean? There's a balancing act there that you really have to have. It's, you might want to be a certain thing, but you also have to embrace who you are right now. And it's done pretty well for you. You're 11-2 for that reason. So I think there is, as I mentioned earlier, an identity crisis right now with Philadelphia, and I think they need to lean into what they do right. But you're totally right. Both sides are going to know what these teams do well, and you got to keep them honest at least, right? You don't want to be one-dimensional ever in the NFL, especially with the playoffs getting going. These teams want to prove to themselves that they can be a complete football team, so if they have to play the Detroit Lions in the playoffs or, for you guys, the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs, that, hey, like, you're going to have to deal with everything we've got, not just one thing.
That's what the great teams do. Good teams can get to what they do well and do it well consistently and do it well often. But the great teams do that, but then also have counter punches.
Yeah, not just a fastball, right?
Exactly. Like, hey, you think this is how I'm coming? Guess what? I'm coming. I'm coming this out. You think my right hand is the most dangerous part, but let me hit you with this left, and then all of a sudden you're not guarding because that's not what we've shown.
Well, because Chris, like the Steelers have made the playoffs for years off of just having a fastball, but now it does feel like they have a counter. Like a fastball can get you a wild card berth. The 2021 Eagles were one of the best rushing attacks I've ever seen, but they couldn't throw the ball. So you got to have those counters if you want to go from good to great.
Absolutely. I think that's a big factor here as well. I wonder how, the secondary has been great for the Eagles. How have you liked their kind of intermediate covers? Like, we know about Quinyon Mitchell, we know about Cooper DeJean, we know about Darius Slay. Like, those guys are talented. But how have you felt about the guys in between, the linebackers and the safeties that have to cover the tight ends, the slot guys? Because I think them, and again, the running backs, they love to throw to Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. How have they done in coverage this year?
It's going to be a tough matchup for Pittsburgh because normally Philadelphia, their weak point on defense and just roster in general when it comes to how much resources Howie Roseman allocates to certain spots, safety and linebacker, they normally draw the short end of the stick. But Zach Bond at linebacker this year, I think he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He has the highest coverage grade of any linebacker right now in football. And then at safety, like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he's getting going, had another interception last week against Carolina. He's got 3 on the year. But Reed Blankenship's coming back from a concussion, so we'll see how he's looking. I do think that still is, again, the strength of this football team is the defensive line, and surprisingly, they're cornerbacks for the first time in a long time. But they have a really good linebacker tandem with Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean and an underrated safety tandem. So the thing is, there really isn't, like last year, there isn't a personnel weak point you can say on this Eagles roster, like, hey, this is what you can exploit. I do think they've done a really good job of not just taking the short, the cheap way out and, doing Band-Aid signings on defense anymore. So linebacker actually this year is a strength, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I look at the names there, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean. I like the athleticism there, and so it's going to be about assignment football. Can you stick to your guys? Can you run with guys? Zach Bond. Who do the Steelers go after in this game? Like last week, they were able to catch Devin Bush, a former Steeler, playing linebacker for the Browns. They caught him in mismatches where it's like,
I'd still say it's probably Nakobe. I would probably say Nakobe is the guy to, if you're going to target someone, he would probably be the liability in coverage, if comparatively speaking.
And so, like, can they get the ball in in that direction more often than not? Because again, the Steelers know this secondary. They've played not Quinyon and Cooper, obviously they're rookies, but they've played Darius Slay before. They know what that's like. So to me, that's going to be a big factor here is getting those guys in situations that favor the Steelers. Because again, George Pickens isn't the guy now. So now you're not looking for Pickens on Slay or Pickens on Mitchell. You're looking for in the intermediate where you get there, and then when you get those one-on-ones, how do you capitalize on them in the right spaces?
It's going to be a great battle between the 11-2 Philadelphia Eagles, the 10-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. We got you covered for another show right here on Locked On Eagles and Locked On Steelers on Friday, and of course reacting to America's Game of the Week afterwards on Sunday. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Steelers your first listen and watch each and every day. For Chris Carter, I'm Louie DiBiase signing off. Enjoy the game, and as always, thanks for listening.